Hey everyone, this is chapter 4 of The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. This is a doozy chapter. I'm going to get started right away so you can listen to this a couple of times, because if you get this chapter, you can actually talk to formless substance and create what you want with your thoughts. Okay, the first principle in The Science of Getting Rich. Thought is the only power which can produce tangible riches from the formless substance. The stuff from which all things are made is a substance which thinks, and the thought of form in this substance produces the form. Original substance moves according to its thoughts. Every form and process you see in nature is the visible expression of a thought in original substance. As the formless stuff thinks of a form, it takes that form. As it thinks of a motion, it makes that motion. That is the way all things were created. We live in a thought world, which is part of a thought universe. The thought of a moving universe extended throughout formless substance, and the thinking stuff moving according to that thought took the form of systems of planets and maintains that form. Thinking substance takes the form of its thought and moves according to that thought. Holding the idea of a circling system of suns and worlds, it takes the form of those bodies and moves them as it thinks. Thinking the form of a slow-growing oak tree, it moves accordingly and produces the tree, though centuries may be required to do the work. In creating, the formless seems to move according to the lines of motion it has established. The thought of an oak tree does not cause the instant formation of a full-grown tree, but it does start in motion the forces which will produce the tree, along established lines of growth. Every thought of form held in thinking substance causes the creation of that form, but always, or at least generally, along lines of growth and action already established. The thought of a house of a certain construction, if it were impressed upon formless substance, might not cause the instant formation of the house, but it would cause the turning of creative energies already working in trade and commerce into such channels as to result in the speedy building of the house. And if there were no existing channels through which the creative energy could work, then the house would be formed directly from primal substance without waiting for the slow processes of the organic and inorganic world. No thought of form can be impressed upon original substance without causing the creation of the form. Man is a thinking center and can originate thought. All the forms that man fashions with his hands must first exist in his thought. We cannot shape a thing until we have thought that thing. And so far, men and women, we have confined our efforts wholly to the work of our hands. We have not applied manual labor to the world of forms, seeking to change or modify those already existing. We have never thought of trying to cause the creation of new forms by impressing our thoughts upon formless substance. When we have a thought form, we take material from the forms of nature and make an image of the form which is in our mind. We have so far made little or no effort to cooperate with formless intelligence to work with the Father, quote unquote. We have not dreamed that, quote, we can do what we see the Father doing, unquote. We reshape and modify existing forms by manual labor. We have given no attention to the question whether we may not produce things from formless substance by communicating our thoughts directly to it. We propose to prove that we may do so, to prove that any man or woman may do so, and to show how. As our first step, we must lay down 3 fundamental propositions. First, we assert that there is one original formless stuff or substance from which all things are made. All the seemingly many elements are but different presentations of one element. All the many forms found in organic and inorganic nature are but different shapes made from the same stuff. And this stuff is thinking stuff. A thought held in it produces the form of the thought. Thought in thinking substance produces shapes. Man is a thinking center capable of original thought. If we can communicate our thought to original thinking substance, we can cause the creation or formation of the thing we think about. To summarize this, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. Man or woman can form things in our thoughts, and by impressing our thoughts upon formless substance, we can cause the thing we think about to be created. It may be asked if I can prove these statements, and without going into details, I answer that I can do so, both by logic and experience. Reasoning back from the phenomena of form and thought, I come to one original thinking substance, and reasoning forward from this thinking substance, I come to man's power to cause the formation of the thing he thinks about. I'm going to read that again. Reasoning back from the phenomena of form and thought, I come to one original thinking substance, and reasoning forward from this thinking substance, I come to man's power to cause the formation of the thing he thinks about. It's kind of like as above, so below. If God and formless substance do it, his creatures can do it. And by experiment, I find the reasoning true, and this is my strongest proof. If a man or woman who reads this book gets rich by doing what it tells us to do, that is evidence in support of my claim. But if every person who does what it tells him to do gets rich, that is positive proof until one goes through the process and fails. The theory is true until the process fails, and this process will not fail, for every man who does exactly what this book tells him to do will get rich. I have said that men and women get rich by doing things in a certain way. And in order to do so, men must become able to think in a certain way. A man's way of doing things is the direct result of the way he thinks about things. To do things in a way you want to do them, you will have to acquire the ability to think the way you want to think. This is the first step toward getting rich. To think what you want to think is to think truth, regardless of appearances. Every man has the natural and inherent power to think what he wants to think, but it requires far more effort to do so than it does to think the thoughts which are suggested by outward appearance. To think according to appearance is easy. To think truth regardless of appearances is laborious and requires the expenditure of more power than any other work that we are called upon to perform. There is no labor from which most people shrink as they do from that of sustained and consecutive thought. It is the hardest work in the world. This is especially true when truth is contrary to appearances. Every appearance in the visible world tends to produce a corresponding form in the mind which observes it, and this can only be prevented by holding the thought of the truth. To look upon the appearance of disease will produce the form of disease in your own mind, and ultimately in your body, unless you hold the thought of the truth, which is that there is no disease, it is only an appearance, and the reality is health. To look upon the appearance of poverty will produce corresponding forms in your own mind, unless you hold to the truth that there is no poverty, there is only abundance. To think health when surrounded by the appearances of disease, or to think riches when in the midst of appearances of poverty, requires power. But we who acquire this power, we become masterminds. We can conquer fate, and we can have what we want. This power can only be acquired by getting hold of the basic fact which is behind all appearances. And that fact is that there is one thinking substance from which and by which all things are made. Then we must grasp the truth that every thought held in this substance becomes a form, and that we can so impress our thoughts upon it as to cause them to take form and become visible things. When we realize this, we lose all doubt and fear, for we know that we can create what we want to create. We can get what we want to have and can become what we want to be. As a first step toward getting rich, you must believe the three fundamental statements given previously in this chapter. And in order to emphasize them, I repeat them here. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. Men and women can form things in our thoughts, and by impressing our thoughts upon formless substance, we can cause the thing we think about to be created. You must lay aside all other concepts of the universe than this monistic one. You must dwell upon this until it is fixed in your mind and has become your habitual thought. Read these creed statements over and over again. Fix every word upon your memory and meditate upon them until you firmly believe what they say. If a doubt comes to you, cast it aside as a sin. Do not listen to arguments against this idea. Do not go to churches or lectures where a contrary concept of things is taught or preached. Do not read magazines or books which teach a different idea. If you get mixed up in your faith, all your efforts will be in vain. Do not ask why these things are true, nor speculate as to how they can be true. Simply take them on trust. The science of getting rich begins with the absolute acceptance of this faith. So this is all very true, guys. I know it gets people very angry and upset to think about disease and poverty, that we think some people just are. I just think that's a false belief, that we have to have illness, disease, and poverty. But this gets people angry because people have spent their lives working with different issues and pains, and we're working with people in poverty. I would say when I want to work with the poor, when I walk with the poor, I want to empower them to be sovereign and rise above themselves. I don't want to do handouts and give handouts. I want to help them rise up. It's a poverty consciousness that's the problem. But getting a hold of these ideas is so hugely important. And I work with my clients a lot to explain that when you look at the outside world, you look at the bank account, the girl, the guy, what your mom said, what your child said, the breakfast that you ate, the workout you didn't do. When you're looking at outward appearances, that's you, your creation from last week or yesterday or last month or last year. The world isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. That's a mirror for what you have created. But so many of us look at through our five senses. We use our five senses and bring in this data, and it forms another image in our mind, which creates a cycle that repeats this life, the life of the illness, disease, poverty, unhappiness, whatever. And then, but it's really important to turn off the five senses and go into our minds and begin to create the reality that we want to create. I think this chapter is worthy of a re-listen or buy the book and read it and memorize the formless substance on peace. I just want to bless you and I just love you guys, bless you. And please, I hope you enjoy this and can ponder these thoughts. I think they're great. Take care. Bye.